Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Brian Kilmeade. And a crouton is her loofah, Dana Perino, the 5.
That was
Chairman Kim and I just signed a joint statement in which he reaffirmed his unwavering commitment to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
They interrupted The Bachelorette for that? Anyway, this is big news, but it's only a start, a first date, if you will. Verification is key, for in the past, North Korea has been about as trustworthy as sushi from the drugstore on a Thursday in the summertime. But maybe that past is dead. Check out this movie trailer that President Trump presented to Kim.
Destiny Pictures presents a story of opportunity, a new story, a new beginning, one of peace, 2 men, 2 leaders, 1 destiny. A story about a special moment in time when a man is presented with one chance that may never be repeated. What will he choose? To show vision and leadership? Or not? A new world can begin today. One of friendship, respect, and goodwill. Be part of that world where the doors of opportunity are ready to be opened.
Okay,
Wow.
that is amazing.
I can't wait for the movie.
Yes, and it's got to be a first. Showing a world leader what the world could be like if you change your ways. As a movie trailer, who does this? Donald Trump. Why? Why did he show him this?
I showed it to you because that's the future. I mean, that could very well be the future. And the other alternative is just not a very good alternative.
Not at all. See, it's about 2 options. The golden off-ramp or the cliff to nowhere. This is not politics, it's persuasion. It reframes the future so the past is the past. This isn't thinking outside the box, it's getting rid of the box. Really, Trump just did a sales presentation on freedom. No one has done that before. Will Kim do what's right?
I think he's going to do these things. I may be wrong. I mean, I may stand before you in 6 months and say, hey, I was wrong. I don't know that I'll ever admit that, but I'll find some kind of an excuse.
Now, that's transparency. Now, this should feel like good news, but if you still believe the summit was itself a concession, then it won't. But with that thinking, why have diplomacy? We'd be stuck in one place forever. So what should reassure you? Our new crew, Pompeo, Bolton, Trump. This isn't Kerry, Hillary, or that guy, Ben Rhodes, entitled lemmings out for legacy. They were all carrot. The new guys, which makes the carrot possible. The establishment will laugh, but just months ago, the same people who thought Trump was leading us to war are now mad that he's averting it. Screw him. As for you, you should greet this news with hope, not illusion. Let's check back in a year. Worst case, we're back at square one. That's no concession, just a path tried. What did one great philosopher say?
We're going to have to see what happens. We will see what we will see. We'll see what happens. We're going to see what happens.
We're going to see what happens.
So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. All right. Okay, Kilmeade, I'm going to you first because, frankly, I feel bad for you.
Just overall?
Yes, in general. Has anybody ever done this before? Present a video. It's like a timeshare condominium video that a salesman will show you to get you to go on the tour. This could be the start of something new where you go to other countries and go, this is what you could have.
It's great. And by the way, I could not back your decision to come to me first strong enough. And here's why it's a good decision.
Yes. Why?
I actually watched at 10 and they got up at 1:30 to do the show at 5. So I actually have not been I've been watching Singapore time.
Yes.
And now we're back in East Coast time. So a couple of things. He also said this on the condo episode. He said, watching those missiles, those rockets take off and they hit Japan, I'm thinking to myself, that's a beautiful beach it's going over. Yeah. We could put condos.
Yes.
And he's like, that could be the condos.
Yes.
So I'm just saying I know there's a lot of reasons to say it's not going to work, But all I could say is keep your powder dry if you are quick to criticize the president, because this, you've got to understand, is just step number one of a brand new series of stairs.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows where this is heading, but I know for sure it's not done yet. And the pressure is really on them, because this is the best chance they'll ever have to give their people a future and give their monarchy, whatever you call it, some type of security. And if they want an example, it's Vietnam and China. Command economies where we never want to live, but they found a way to put some market principles in there where we actually get along with both. Vietnam probably gets along with us better than China and Russia these days. So I am encouraged by the chance. There's plenty of reasons to poke holes in it. This term, which I think is not great, commits to work towards complete denuclearization, is not complete denuclearizing the entire peninsula. However, it's a first step, and guess what happens next week? Bolton and Pompeo pick up where this summit left off. Game on.
Yeah. What do you think, Dana? I think this is, I'm skeptical, but I also have a feeling of hope. I'm a little buoyed.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I kind of feel the same as I did yesterday.
Yeah.
Except for I didn't like, I don't know. I had some uneasiness. Like looking at the flags side by side, like he's like an equal partner. Like Kim really did get a lot out of this. He's got all the propaganda that he can use back home. Now Russia has to come to him to have a meeting. The Chinese are going to come to him to have a meeting. He no longer has to go there, although he might do that as well. The video does remind me of that idea I had a long time ago that I asked General Petraeus to do when he was at the CIA, which was to create a video showing suicide bombers, like the underwear bombers,
right,
what could happen to them with a little mistake.
Exactly.
How risky it could be.
Yes. Present the alternatives.
Yeah.
What happens when your crotch lives?
Yes. And yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to get them to do.
That was the title of the movie, I believe.
I had Sumi Terry on today. She was a former CIA deputy director for Korean issues, and she said, overall, net plus.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's probably where I was yesterday, or as you're describing. I'm hopeful, but I'm skeptical. I do think that personnel is policy in a lot of ways, so the fact that Bolton and Pompeo are going over there is good. I do wonder, though, if the people who are critical of it, like many on the left, there are some on the right, but people are critical of it because they're looking at this and saying it's not strong enough. We're the same ones that praise President Obama for Iran.
Yeah.
So I just think that consistency and skepticism about these things is warranted.
And
all right,
Cuba.
I want to play this video for, I think I'll play this for Juan. This is, Donald Trump is going to be on Hannity tonight. You're familiar with Sean Hannity?
I've heard.
All right.
Heard
and they're going to talk about the early rhetoric that Donald Trump employed. Let's roll that tape for the world.
Well, I think without the rhetoric, we wouldn't have been here. I really believe that. We did sanctions and all of the things that you would do, but I think without the rhetoric, other administrations, I don't want to get specific on that, but they had a policy of silence. If they said something very bad, very threatening and horrible, just don't answer. That's not the answer. That's not what you have to do. So I think the rhetoric, I hated to do it. Sometimes I felt foolish doing it. But we had no choice.
What do you think, Juan?
I think he's celebrating himself. He's rationalizing what he did before. But
He just said he made a mistake.
Excuse me?
No, he didn't.
He said that maybe he felt bad doing it.
Yeah, that's what he said. But he didn't say he
worked.
made a mistake. He said it worked. It's to the contrary. But I mean, to me, this whole thing, I listen to you guys and I think, boy, look at the defenders of Trump today. I mean, this is like a wet firecracker. This is like This is like the end of The Sopranos, where you go, what happened to my TV? Did anything happen to this show? What happened here?
That was a great series.
Oh,
Don't think this is a great.
Don't stop believing.
series.
We're
Yeah.
playing on the jukebox.
Yeah, really. I mean, but you got to remember, the man who set the bar for this was none other than our TV star Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, no lengthy negotiations like my predecessors. Remember?
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said no concessions that will stall and simply give this horrible regime more time to perpetrate their terrors. And he said quite clearly, we're going to talk about human rights. Otto Warmbier. So today he says, oh, Otto Warmbier didn't die in vain. Oh, but you didn't bring up. Instead,
Yes, he did. Yes, last night. It was amazing.
No, in
and he brought up
fact-
the repatriations
Hold on.
as well.
In fact,
oh,
what he
come
said
on, be
was-
accurate.
I'll be accurate. What he
That's
said
what he
was,
said.
well, here's what Kim said. We agreed to let the past be the past. We're moving on.
Yeah. Well,
That's what he said.
Kimberly-
I see. So let me finish. So here you have a situation.
10 minutes in.
You say, oh, are these lemmings? You say Kerry and others are lemmings.
Yeah, I was being diplomatic.
Is Otto Warmbier one of the lemmings too? Did he just go away, just go off the edge? That's terrible.
That makes no sense. So wait a second. I did not say that.
That's also highly inappropriate.
To me,
that was so wrong, Juan.
I
did not call Warmbier a lemming, you moron.
Let me just say something. You say, this has never been tried before. We're going down a path that's never been tried before. I guess you've never read about Bill Clinton and the framework agreement in which the North Koreans took concessions, don't deliver. How about the six-party talks?
I stopped listening to you when you said I called Warmbier a moron.
How about
Kimberly?
Enough.
No, enough.
Because you go on and you
You accused me of saying something I didn't say.
But you say these guys are lemmings.
They are.
You throw everybody else over the top.
They did bring up human rights. Kimberly?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, what are we in North Korea right now? So listen, I got an opinion too, and I think that it was incredible to watch last night. So many of us were riveted by it. It is an important moment in not just American political history, but in international discourse and diplomacy. I really hope and pray that this is the first step of, yes, many meetings between the United States and North, South Korea, China, be able to work together, nuclear scientists involved, to be able to trust but verify, which was Reagan's policy, and really work towards peace. No one benefits, from war. And so in that sense, I think this was something that was important. It's a step in the right direction. Can he say that he trusts 100% the actions of that man that has run, a brutal regime of torture and behaved in a way horrifically to his own people? No, but perhaps we have some small part to play in stopping that, some shedding some light on it, and not continuing to have them isolated to create and commit their horrors without the rest of the world knowing about it. I believe the president when he says that Otto Warmbier did not die in vain, because that really did cast a very bright light on what was going on in North Korea. And I think really was really so pivotal in terms of being able to get POWs, MIA, remains home, be able to negotiate for the other hostages that were held there. That does matter to those families and those that have been grieving and looking to bury their loved ones. So I say, let's give this a chance. Kudos to our president for being able to make this happen, which so many people didn't think was
exactly. What did we get out of this? We said we're going to stop our exercises with South Korea. What do we get in return? We get promises, pledges. Oh my gosh! You guys.
You are such a baby one about this.
Denuclearization. That's what we got.
Oh, we got complete denuclearization.
We got a promise to work towards that. It's better than one not.
I say, I'm just telling you something. Remember, you have people who say the Iran deal stinks, right?
Terrible.
The Iran deal, the Iranians didn't have nukes. And we had a deal to stop them from getting nukes.
Wow. And now they're quickly getting them. How did that happen?
The North Koreans have nukes.
Well, they have all the precursors.
After 70 years of doing what?
Given that we are saying that this is about non-proliferation.
They had nukes using your old traditional bad diplomacy.
You keep talking and saying your monologue, that's just ridiculous. But let me just say, we are rewarding
it's also about
bad
not
behavior
having the material.
and getting nothing for it, despite all the big talk from Trump.
I cannot believe you're acting like that Donald Trump rewarded bad behavior.
He did.
What did Bill Clinton do by paying money?
Tried to make a
this
deal
guy, the only thing he did
screwed.
is meet with him and starting a series of talks.
Brian, why do you think other presidents didn't do it?
There's a reason why they didn't do
Tell me,
it.
Brian.
Because they didn't have nuclear weapons. They weren't a threat to us. The multi-stage rockets can now hit the lower 48 states, and there was a legitimate military threat that brought them to the table.
All right, guys, we're going to do another block on this, believe it or not, if we're still here. More reaction to the many big moments from the historic Trump-Kim summit. Stay with us.
More reaction to President Trump's historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Here's another comment from the president. This one caught my attention.
He knows that no other president ever could have done this. I mean, no other he knows the presidents. He knows who we had in front of me. He said no other president could have done this. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
So, Kimberly, this is a key point because in the past, as we were discussing earlier, under President Clinton, under President Bush, the six-party talks, under President Obama, the Leap Day Agreement, everybody says, okay, we'll give you a little bit, and then we expect that you will act faithfully But the history indicates that he doesn't.
Well, right. So you have to be wise, to history. You pay attention to it. You do not ignore it in the hopes that you will learn lessons from it and move forward more effectively, smarter, brighter, especially towards achieving such incredibly important goals as denuclearization and having peace over in that region. It's been so many years in the coming, and I applaud the efforts of presidents past for putting their effort forward to try to make this happen. It's all part of the process. But perhaps this time around there was a little bit of a unique approach. And I mentioned yesterday, I do think that it's part of it is something that Kim Jong-un is a little bit fascinated by President Trump and who he is as an individual and who he was prior to becoming president of the United States. So it's somebody that he feels a little bit different towards. Perhaps that relationship is one that can actually move the ball forward because it is a unique, unconventional diplomacy that the president engages in. That's why he said, I don't need to be preparing for hours and hours. I've been ready to do this negotiation. And so far, it has produced very auspicious results. I think this is part of it, of a new chapter going forward with North Korea and South Korea and China as well.
Okay, so Greg, I was saying earlier that I don't see how you can oppose the Iran deal and then say, oh, I'm going to pay for Kim's room service. I'm going to give him whatever he wants, especially in saying we're going to stop our military exercises without any concession coming from the North. What do you say?
There's a great contrast if you just hear what Ben Rhodes said about how they pulled the wool over the American public's eyes.
Echo chamber,
and then compare that to the press conference that Trump held, which was effortless, on point, and transparent. When you were the American public, and I actually believe the world, was in this room. All right, that's why that video actually played to a lot more than Kim Jong-un. It replayed to everybody. And it was a public display for everybody so that it makes it hard for people to back away from it. It framed the future for that guy, Kim Jong-un, because he now feels like he has something. It's easier to try to want something than to lose something. So he feels that he has something, and Trump has got him past the sale. He's envisioning himself in this world. And once you get somebody to test drive that car, it's hard to get him out of that car. So I think the lesson here is that this is a framework that could be used with Iran. And Iran in a transparent way in which you don't lie to the American people and you don't feed billions to them.
Okay, so let me go to Dana. Dana, so we stopped doing our exercises with the South. That's a clear concession. But I don't see anything from the North. What do you say?
Well, the North, you read the statement. It's pretty ambiguous. It's less than what they had agreed to before, but I think that this is a first meeting, and I think it was a chance for President Trump to size up his adversary. And he said, I'll know within the first minute, and I guess within the first minute, he must have felt like it's worth continuing on. When the history of all of this is written, it'll be interesting to find out how much the CIA influenced that video because of the profile that they have of Kim Jong-un. People keep talking about past presidents and how they couldn't do this or that. And true, but also they weren't dealing with this guy. They were dealing with the original from 1955. I think Kim Jong-sun was his name, and then Kim Jong-il, who was his father. And they were not enraptured by the West. They didn't care about basketball and pop culture, and they didn't want all of this stuff. And so there is something happening there that I wonder if the CIA eventually, maybe in 80 years, will be able to reveal the documents and show us what that is.
Fascinating.
When it comes to the military exercises, I too wonder, But I also feel like President Trump can turn that on a dime. Like, why would he care? Like, if the North Koreans are not going to live up to their end of the bargain, we could turn back on our military exercises very quickly.
Right.
Real quick, the big difference is 3 of the 4 resolutions by the Security Council of the UN are the strongest that anyone's ever seen. And both Russia and China signed on to it. Special thanks to, I think, a future president, Nikki Haley.
Yeah,
and they really suffocated that regime that was already suffering. And they even tightened up the border on top of that. And I think it made it clear. The president says, I will solve this in my first term one way or another. The military threat was legitimate. China saw it. Russia digested it. And China wasn't going to stand in the way because they could not control this guy.
One last quick thing, Brian. The critics, the harshest critics will say, we gave Kim Jong-un the legitimacy that he craved by having this meeting. Well, how do you respond?
A legitimate point you bring up, but I think the alternative would have been war, 30 million dead, and the president said, yeah, you told me I gave him something? Well, they've been in power for 70 years.
Well, what about...
This is not Al-Qaeda or ISIS. You're not meeting with al-Baghdadi.
And who
this
cares
is a
if he has
70-year
room
regime.
service?
But I
Room
know what
service.
you're saying. That's a valid point, and it's a calculated risk. It's a valid point, a calculated risk, but I think it's worth it depending on how it ends up.
I mean, it's either that or war, not containment, which is what we've been doing in the past.
Because it's not containing.
It's not
a
contained.
three-stage
It's not
rocket
contained.
ready to hit. Do you
This
find-
is-
you
this is-
Well, I think,
bring up a good
don't
point,
forget,
but I think it's
Iran,
worth it.
Russia, they have it, and we've contained them.
He hasn't been contained. That's why we've arrived
Well,
at
I'm
this
just
point
saying,
at this
and
juncture
Iran
in
does not
history.
have-
Iran does not have
Iran doesn't, but we have people who have nukes, and we're containing them. More reaction to this historic sit-down between the president and Kim Jong-un straight ahead. But first, President Trump responding in a big, funny way to Robert De Niro's latest attack.
Hi, I'm Barry Sloan with NewTek, your business solutions company. Does your business need more?
With midterm polls tightening, Democrats are turning to Hollywood for the help that the DNC can give them. DNC and some members of Congress are reportedly quietly consulting with actors, writers, and producers in L.A. to collaborate on messaging and voter turnout. Members of the group reportedly include actresses Alyssa Milano and Helen Hunt. And an update to a story we told you about yesterday. President Trump responding to attacks from actor Robert De Niro by writing on Twitter. Robert De Niro, a very low IQ individual, has received too many shots to the head by real boxers in movies. I watched him last night and truly believe he may be punch drunk. I guess he doesn't realize the economy is the best it's ever been, with employment being at an all-time high and many companies pouring back into our country. Wake up, Punchy. Pretty funny.
This should be a segment in and of itself. You reading Trump's tweets.
Me reading Trump's tweets.
So
It's so Dana-like.
It's like,
I actually really like it.
Yeah,
I
it's
try to.
very
I
funny.
find myself like talking that way normally, or like tweeting that way.
You don't talk
just for
that
fun.
way.
Yes,
Oh.
absolutely, it's fun. Anyway,
the art of the
Democrats
burrito.
turning
Yes.
back to Hollywood.
I think it's a great idea. Get your political messaging from Alyssa Milano, who spends 90% of her time on Twitter belittling anyone who isn't like her. She is in an emotional frenzy since 2016. It's Hollywood messaging that helped the Democrats lose. When you think about it, how does Hollywood portray Americans?
Yep.
Bigoted, warlike, stupid, planet-hating, the cause of all oppression, tormentors of the marginalized and responsible for past evils. That's left-wing politics. So tell the candidate in the Hollywood, tell people, please call more people racist. Please accuse them of polluting the planet. Everybody in flyover country, they're morons. And you know what? We should pay for everyone else's abortions. That would be the Hollywood mention. I mean, the
That
Hollywood
is part of the playbook.
Yeah, it is.
They want to talk more about
Yes.
abortion.
Yeah, that's it.
They think that's the goal. Like, they don't have an economic plan to speak of.
Not that I know of. What I think is crazy that they're turning to Hollywood. Hollywood does know how to market. Clearly they do. A lot of people do. But not the actors.
No,
the actors don't know how to do it. They know how to memorize lines. They're
Right.
just famous
Barely.
people. Yeah. They're the famous people. So they had this big, massive thing to get people to vote. I'm sorry, you didn't call on me, Dan.
No, go ahead.
You sure?
They can memorize lines and do lines.
Right.
That's it.
I don't know about the
Wow.
second half of that.
Is that on your paper?
But I will say this. I just don't think a Democrat who studied the last election should say to themselves the key is getting more celebrities involved because
Well, I have a
they
list.
had big crowds,
I have a
but they
list
didn't
here
have big
from
votes.
our new handy-dandy associate producer, or segment producer, whatever his great title is, Scott Sanders, who gave me the list of Hillary Clinton celebrity rallies. There's 3 pages of them, Juan, and it didn't really help.
No.
Why do you say that?
She lost.
Oh, no, she won the popular vote.
Doesn't matter.
That's how we keep score.
No, I think
No,
that
I
your
hear
point,
you, I hear you,
Your
but-
point is
Yeah.
I mean, there's one
that these
president.
folks are famous.
She wasn't in Singapore.
They're famous, they're in movies, and so they get a lot of attention. They have fans, and especially, I might add, among young people and millennials who respond in
true.
that way. But, I think the hard news of your point in this discussion is about what is the Democratic messaging? What are they going to Hollywood for? What is it that they think could be effective, both in the midterms and going toward 2020? And
What do you
this
think?
morning, in the editorial pages of the 2 big papers, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, both editorials were about health care and about
Yep.
the decision made by the Trump administration to go to not defend the Affordable Health Care Act that's being sued by several states in court and sort of try to let it wither on the vine. The Wall Street Journal says, well, you know, this was withering on its own anyway.
But Juan,
but the New York Times says that this is going to be a big issue for Democrats to use against.
But do that without
celebrities. And if you watch the Daily Briefing, we are on it every day. But Kimberly, can the Democrats can Hollywood help the Democrats with a health care message?
Just for a big loss in the column, because that's so far the playbook. It results in the same, thing time after time. It did not work for Hillary Clinton. It's not going to work for them again. I'm praying. Please rely on Hollywood. They're so cool. Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere for them. Nobody even relates to them. And this is so ironic and hypocritical because the Democrats are going to rely on Hollywood, and they make a living selling sex, drugs, violence, in movies. Yeah, and this is the thing. But they're against all of these things. Okay, wait a second. How is that going to work? How is their messaging going to resonate? It didn't. It failed horribly with Hillary, who was still in a state of total shock, practically comatose over the fact that she didn't win the election and she wasn't in Singapore.
Do you know what? Instead of going to Wisconsin, she hung out with Katy Perry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the message. Instead of going to Wisconsin, she hung out with Miley Cyrus, Ted Danson.
October 22nd.
They count for each. That's one vote per person.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, gee, I wonder who put Clint Eastwood on stage. Was that a Republican or a Democrat?
Hey, you remember it?
Exactly. It didn't work.
Yeah. Oh, but there's a double standard. So when the Democrats say they like actors.
No, we're talking about campaigning.
We had one, but we're keeping Scott Eastwood, his son.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yes, we are. Hello. Yeah. Not everyone sees the Singapore summit as a success. You've probably heard some of that here. Some of the most extreme criticism when we return.
President Trump is facing criticism for his historic summit with Kim Jong-un. Some on the left are railing against Trump's meeting with the North Korean leader.
President Trump has granted a brutal and repressive dictatorship the international legitimacy it has long craved.
This is the weakest statement I have ever seen come out of any engagement with North Korea.
Not to get too weird about this, but it's the president touching Kim Jong-un a lot.
Wow.
It's not mutual.
It's not as if other presidents couldn't have done this. It's that they didn't want to.
The spectacle of seeing the American flags along with the DPRK flags as the backdrop for that handshake is really jarring, actually, to see, to witness. In fact, I would say it's somewhat disgusting.
I mean, it's bonkers, Brian. When you hear some of the stuff and what they're saying, it's just you're like, did we watch the same thing?
Well, look, if he walked out and he says the cranes are dropping in and we're starting to dig up all the nuclear sites, it's going to be 39 of them, and here's the locations, there would have been some critics, but they would have said, okay, overwhelming win for the president. Anything short of that, the same people are going to say the same exact thing. All I say is this. This is the beginning. If this is the end, I agree with them. But it's just the beginning. Next week, you're going to see the beginning, because the president doesn't say this for no reason. You're going to see the dismantling of something beginning next week. You're going to hear about the progress with Pompeo and Bolton beginning next week. It's going to gradually get tighter. It's going to gradually get hotter. And it's going to get more and more interesting as we move forward, because I believe it's not so much the video works. This guy's out of options. And he has the security clearance, to keep him in place. But now he's got the ability to get his economy going. He's got ability at 34 years old to do something different.
Yes, he does, and he needs. They need the cash, and people are suffering over there. So we should all be rooting for a positive, outcome. Dana, when you think back of it, this is an incredible team. It's not just President Trump, but it's the people that he chose, like Nikki Haley and Pompeo and Bolton. Working behind the scenes to make all of this happen.
Even earlier on, too, I would put Tillerson in that category.
Yes.
When they remember, like the president said, "Fire and fury." And then the next day, Rex Tillerson said something kind of conciliatory. And then the media would say, wait a second, it looks like the president and his Secretary of State are not on the same page. I do think when the history is written on this, we'll find out that this was all a strategy to keep the North Koreans off balance. It was coordinated from the beginning, and part of that is the personnel issue. 50,000 Americans died in the Korean War in order to protect the South Koreans from having to live under a communist regime.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of blood and treasure there, so this does mean a lot to a lot of people. I would add one other thing. Senator McConnell had said today that he wants any sort of deal to be submitted to the Senate as a treaty, which is something that the Obama administration could not do with the Iran deal because it would not have passed. And I think if Senator McConnell has that position, it makes for a stronger deal to be more likely and more long-lasting.
I think Trump has that position too.
He should, because otherwise it gets reversed like he just did to Obama.
Okay, Greg.
I was just going back to that montage when what MSNBC was mocking the fact that the two men were touching each other. Is Joy Reid now in charge of their editorial?
I'm not sure.
I mean, what's the problem with two guys touching each other? MSNBC. It's disgusting.
I think their point was not enough touching back.
Yeah, you notice that a lot of the critics don't look well. This is emotionally trying on them. They have a problem because every day they have to signal to their peers that they're still in the fold. They still hate this guy. And so when the good news betrays their emotions, it creates a cognitive dissonance and it creates so much turmoil. I was watching some guy on CNN. I thought he was going to just implode. He could not. I'm not going to say his name because he's a nice guy. But the criticism will be familiar. They will combine past criticism of Trump about other things that are unrelated to North Korea with whataboutism, like what about Cuba, which Trump has nothing to do with. He's inheriting the job.
Yeah.
And he's going to do it his way. So that's what happens when you can't argue the central merits of a story.
Okay.
You go after other stuff.
You know what was interesting too, Juan?
Collusion.
Dennis Rodman on another network last night. He was quite emotional, and he was wearing his MAGA hat, and he said, listen, I tried to tell you guys that this is someone that wanted peace, that he wanted to be recognized, that he was willing to do this, that he went over there and he got to know him, which many people were criticizing Dennis Rodman about it. Greg,
I was his biggest critic.
Thank you for being honest. But you saw that was kind of an emotional moment where he's saying, this is somebody I know, and now the world gets a chance to know him too. And if we can save lives over there and do something positive and denuclearize, who wouldn't be for it?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think that Rodman, though, I was saying this to you guys during the break, it struck me as so self-reverent. He said the reason he was upset with Obama because Obama wouldn't meet with him, but Trump would meet with him. It reminded me of Kanye West. Oh, Obama wouldn't meet with him, but Trump would meet. Trump apparently likes celebrities. But in terms of diplomacy, to me, what you get here is the echo chamber on the right generally saying, oh, you know what, we've got to defend Trump despite the fact that he got so little. But you do see people on the right, I'm thinking here like Max Boot, Ben Shapiro, others, who are saying just the plain fact, what did we get as Americans in terms of further security or assurance of denuclearization? And the answer is zip. So, you could say, oh, these critics are mean. At least they're sitting and talking. And I would grant that point. I like the idea that you have something that's, we could work forward to. Brian, Greg, you've all said this. And I think that's an important point. But I do wonder about the fact that it's not just Otto Warmbier, but it's slave camps that still exist. Right. In North Korea.
And the only chance we have is to bomb them out?
No, I didn't say.
Or we negotiate them out and then let the people decide.
Force?
Well, I don't know about bombing.
Use of force or use of words?
No, you guys keep coming back like it's A or B. In fact, there's a big C, which has been containment and somehow making it clear to them that our sanctions are so punishing that they need to reconsider their bad behavior.
Those 6 months sanctions are still there, and they're getting worse.
The sanctions are still there, so this is why this is working. You wait and see. It's like build the wall. You're going to see steps towards denuclearization, so just wait for it. Bill Clinton does it again. He's once again feeling the heat for his comments about sexual misconduct, and we're going to show you next. Stay with us.
All right, Bill Clinton's blunders just keep on coming. After embarrassing himself on recent TV interviews about Monica Lewinsky, the former president is receiving new backlash, this time for his stunning remarks about sexual misconduct in light of former Democratic Senator Al Franken's scandal. Stop and watch.
I think the norms have really changed in terms of what you can do to somebody against their will, how much you can crowd their space, make them miserable at work. The Franken case, for me, was a difficult case, a hard case. There may be things I don't know. But maybe I'm just an old-fashioned person.
Times have changed. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do to someone against their will. Those rules have changed. Dana, were we the first ones to tell them that the rules have changed and that we never had a rule that you could do something to someone against their will?
Yeah, there was actually a rule against that. Also, just decency.
Decency and common sense. What do you say to that? This is a president.
Here's the thing. I feel like he's out there trying to sell this book that he co-wrote with James Patterson or collaborated with James Patterson on. And I truly believe that book would have been a bestseller if he had not done any interviews. And I'm not sure he's helping himself out there.
You don't have to make someone you don't have to physically assault somebody to make them, feel uncomfortable, Greg.
I feel for James Patterson in all of these interviews. He's sitting off on the side. He's like this. I already. This book was supposed to buy me a beach house. By the way, James Patterson is richer than God.
Right.
You don't need to do this. Why are you doing this to yourself? He shows up, but this isn't the first interview, and this isn't the last author. You know what I'm saying? So he's been sitting with guys, so he has to go through this. It's like, you made enough money. You don't need this.
So, Kimberly, he says, about Monica Lewinsky. He gets a question about Monica Lewinsky. He says, I'm happy Monica Lewinsky seems to have moved on, and she had a good TED Talk.
Yeah.
But she really moved on. A good TED Talk. 15
I don't
minutes.
know.
He doesn't know what a TED Talk is.
The TED Talk is the cure-all for things. Yes, exactly. Look, this is very unfortunate. I think that
he's ruined.
He's ruined. It's one statement after the next. He really should pretty much wrap it up. Zip it on this book tour. Let's just put it that way.
Don't use that verb.
Juan, this is the man that pulled locked in President Obama's re-election at the Democratic convention. It's not the same guy we're watching being interviewed, or is it the same guy being exposed?
I don't know. I just find those comments indefensible. I just don't. I mean, you can do what you can do to people against their will.
It's unbelievable.
Is it possible he misspoke?
I think he did.
No, I think, you know what? I think he was referring back to the idea that in a different era, men behaved differently with women and that men had different standards.
But during Mad Men?
But I just think that the idea that you would do something against a person's will, that sounds a little much.
I think maybe he had a poor choice.
He was trying to he was encompassing like words and making people feel uncomfortable. I think that's what you.
Yeah, but so if you go back to the thing with Franken, Greg, so I guess it's like, can you put your arms around a woman? Can you put it around her waist? What if you touch part of her as you're moving your hand? But you know what? That's never acceptable. You shouldn't have been doing it if it was intentional anyway.
Well, right.
If you're going to have a line in the sand about a fictional book, maybe you don't want to pick up Al Franken. Just go, by the way, I just like to defend Al Franken. I'm the one.
But the people keep asking him these questions. He's got to. Don't go anywhere.
You don't need to do any additional interviews.
Yeah.
Right. One more thing is.
This happened to you? Time for one more thing. Hey, Dana.
Well, I have a happy birthday message for President George H.W. Bush. He's 94 today. He is the oldest living president in United States history. Of course, he's celebrating there with his son, 43, George W. Bush, and they are up in Maine. And I think I have a picture of me. That is so funny. That was in 2008 after they did their an interview together at the White House. The last one. I look really different. I mean, you have no idea how tired I was right there. But anyway, 41, this is about you. We congratulate you on this wonderful life you've lived so far. And we know that you're heartbroken about Barbara Bush, but of course everybody's praying for you and cheering you on, sir.
What a fighter.
All right, KG.
All right, thank you so much. Harris Faulkner is a great friend to all of us here, and this is her book. It was a long time in the making. It is called 9 Rules of Engagement, and it is becoming incredibly
Do you need more rules about engagement?
Received. Yes. I've only had 2. Thank you. Accepted. But thank you, Greg. So this is amazing because not only is Harris Faulkner an 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist and a star here at Fox News, she is part of an incredible military family, and the book pays tribute to her father, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Bob Harris, who served 2 tours in Vietnam as a combat pilot. And Harris grew up in this military family, which she admits, was not always easy. But that's why there were so many valuable life lessons that came out of this and her experience. And I know she credits her father and her family for her successes in life. I really encourage you to get this book. It's excellent, and you get to know a lot more about Harris and why she grew up to be the person that she is.
You got to admit, that was a good joke. You got to admit. That was on the fly, Kimberly.
But I will say, great book. You're right.
Right?
You'll love
very good.
That was a great joke, Brian.
I know. I'm trying desperately to move.
All right, Juan.
Oh, big day in Washington, and I'm not talking about the summit, folks. It was the Stanley Cup victory parade for the Washington Capitals down Constitution Avenue. First time one of Washington's 4 major league teams has won a championship since the early 90s, and it's the first time the Caps have ever won, and they've been around for more than 40 years. The players had quite a weekend taking the cup around town, but today was for every long-suffering fan from Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and baby, they packed the streets. Congratulations to the Capitals.
Very nice.
Hockey? Is that hockey?
Yeah, the Ovechkin for president is pretty funny.
Is it really?
Well, because
I wouldn't know. All right. Oh, that would be funny.
And friends with Putin.
Don't we already have a Russian president? We'll be right back. All right, let's do this. Griggs, that's repulsive. All right, if you have any children in the room right now, get them out of there. This is absolutely disgusting. Let's roll this tape. I came across this horrible, disgusting video of a cat being given a bubble bath using a toothbrush. As you can see, wearing a little protection for the hair, the head, which is called, I guess, the cranium, the cat cranium. Anyway, this went on for this tape lasts 45 hours. I play it all the time.
Cats don't even need a bath.
Do they?
By the way, they don't even like water.
They lick themselves.
Yeah, they don't like water.
Yeah. Anyway, quite attractive. All right, shall I move over to Brian Kilmeade, or should just skip him?
The war on history continues. The Hermitage was defiled after 200 years. Andrew Jackson's grave was defiled. Believe it or not, they had to fly in specialists. It took 11 weeks to put it together, but they actually were able to clean it up. It had red paint. They painted Killer on his wife's grave. Yesterday, Howard Keitel was able to marshal the forces and get the War of 1812 guys out. They fixed the gravesite. I think it's absolutely terrible, but it's great that our 7th president is restored.